welcome to part two of the Young Men episode where we are talking about music. Let's pick up where we left off with this question. Song that I never will get sick of. Connor, do you want to start us off with this one?
Yeah, I chose Blank Space by Taylor Swift, which is just one that I have loved ever since she released it, and I can't see myself ever getting tired of it. So I don't know what that song selection says about me, but I just really enjoy it.
It doesn't mean that you get vindictive in your relationships if they end poorly. Isn't that the one where she smashes a golf club into someone's really nice car?
Yep, she destroys paintings. She, I think, drops his phone in a fountain. She kind of goes crazy, which is not reflective of how I react to relationships ending. But I don't know. Maybe it's like an outlet or something.
It is a really good song and very catchy. Christian, what's yours? Oh yeah, go for it.
So, do you remember when this came out?
Yeah.
This was also freshman year, I believe. And so I just enjoy that. I'm tickled that all of these song selections seem to come out of the same year. Do you remember seeing the music video at all? Do you remember where you were or anything like that?
I think I was in our apartment freshman year, and that year I listened to that song a ton, just over and over. And watch the music video a lot too, just because it's kind of a ridiculous video. She just goes insane. But yeah, I definitely remember that.
I remember that too. I remember I was in an art class at BYU, and it was released minutes before, and another student, begged the whole class to see this video, and we all watched it and just laughed. But what I thought was so fun about this song was it was a very tasteful jab at her haters or people that said she was a serial dater. Then she was like, that's great, I'll lean in hard on that accusation and make a song all about it. And I thought, man, what a great way to clap back at people who were, they would mock her. She just owned it and went all in. One of the other very interesting things is that the lead singer in Imagine Dragons thought he loves this song so much he covered it with his band in a Spotify session. So that's another great one to go to. He just said, I think this is great lyric writing. It's a fun song, and he's speaking to his audience, and everyone kind of chuckles. He's like, no, I mean it. Seriously, I love this song. And he heads right on in and does a great performance. So if you haven't seen that, that's a great song as well.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Josh, you asked about mine. My favorite one is Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. I think what gets me every time, and I will never get sick of this, is that very initial guitar riff that it's like a waterfall that drops down into the song. It starts high, drops down in, and this is a song I would put on my morning alarm if I could. I love this one. It starts my day well. It is a great bop. It's fun to dance to, and not once have I ever been annoyed or bothered by this song. So I'm going to be listening to this for a long time.
I love that song. Where does that song appear most? I feel like I've seen it in so many movies or commercials.
I think any teen high school movie is probably where you're going to see it the most. Probably something like Sky High in that movie. I think it's very much like it's early on in any movie. It's at the start. There's maybe some montage of kids going to school or trying to look their best, anything like that.
Wow, you referencing Sky High, that is that's gonna date us. Gosh, that movie, I haven't seen that movie since I was probably 10 years old, but I still have images burned into my memory. Wasn't there a scene where, this is so tangential, isn't there a scene where everybody's been turned into babies and they're being transported away from the school by the villains?
You're dead on. Yep, that's exactly right.
Oh my God.
Somehow the scientist is still cognizant as an adult in baby form because of his big head. So
Oh,
anyway,
that's a
there's that
classic.
anecdote for our listeners.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll ever make a sequel to that movie. I hope not.
Me
Okay.
too.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share mine, song that I never get sick of. I just kind of picked a random one. It's a song called "All About You" by Foster the People and the Knox. Foster the People is a band that I return to very often. Also a quirky band. A lot of their music I don't like at all, but all of their collabs with the Knox are fantastic. It's just an easy listen, but also a hype song. It's one that I listen to in the shower when I get ready for the morning. I also chose another song called "Move Me" by Half Alive. This is from their most recent album. If you haven't listened to Half Alive, they're a fantastic band. I don't know if you guys got a chance to listen to the song. I added it to our list a little bit late, but the more it's just one of those songs that the more I listen to it, the more I love it, instead of the opposite of getting sick of it. So I would recommend that song to go and listen to. "Move Me" is also has a compelling message and lyrics. It's a little more emotion packed than "All About You," which is just more of a kind of a dance song.
Josh, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to "Move Me." I missed that one, so I'm excited to hear it. But yeah, "All About You." I also love that one. The Knox, man, who knew? I can't tell if they're like a DJ type band that frequently collab with other bands. They hit your list earlier on this podcast, and they were also paired with another band. So I don't know, but they've got a great sound. I love their music.
Yeah, and I don't know if they write music individually. I haven't even looked them up, honestly, but all of their collabs I love. I think they also do "Ride or Die" with Foster the People, which is another great song. All right. Guys, we're hopping ahead to this question, which I'm very excited for because we all put the same answer, and I don't know who answered first and if there was some copying going on, but the question is, can you think of a soundtrack that changed the entire tone of the movie? This question is credited to Christian. This was your idea. So I'm going to let you start us off on this one.
You know, to answer your other question, Josh, I'm pretty sure I put my answer last. But this question was born out of this album. You know, I just had this in my mind. I thought, we've got to talk about this soundtrack. So I'm very pleased to see that you all had the same answer. We chose the Interstellar album by Hans Zimmer. I don't want to just talk the whole time on this one, but what do you guys think? What made this so impressionable?
Connor, I'll let you speak first.
I just remember when we went and saw that in theaters, and I don't know, it's just the whole experience with the music, I feel like really made it, because it just created these incredibly intense scenes. It just had such an impact on the movie, and there's a lot of time during that movie where no one's talking, and so you just hear the music. And so I think it plays such a big role. And I remember, Josh, I'm sure you probably remember this too, but we took a geology class together after we had seen that movie, and during our quizzes, we would play the Interstellar soundtrack just to, I don't know why, just to make this really intense environment to take these really easy geology quizzes.
They were timed quizzes. I think that was the thing. They were timed quizzes, so we were like, we need something to hype us up and help us feel extra pressure instead of calming us down. So we would blast those songs while we were taking the quizzes.
Yeah, but it's music that just creates, I feel like, really strong emotions in that movie, and that movie, it wouldn't be the same without that soundtrack.
That movie, I remember walking out of the theaters and not being able to speak for like 30 minutes because I was just so blown away by it. It had space travel, it had relationships. The father-daughter relationship especially really got me. And I remember just being surprised. I felt so many different emotions during that movie. There was humor, Matthew McConaughey's dry humor. And there was also just a lot of intensity and stress. And then there was deep deep love and heartbreak. For example, the first scenes that come to my mind are when Matthew McConaughey comes back with Anne Hathaway from the Water Planet, and he's listening to the recordings from his daughter and son that have spanned 20 plus years, and he just breaks down in tears. And then there's the scene at the end when he's trying to speak to Murph through the fifth dimension, and he's just yelling at himself to just don't leave on this trip that he's going on, to just stay with his daughter. And musically, the music that got me on the edge of my seat was that the one scene where Matt Damon has tried to mutiny. He's stolen his spaceship. He's trying to land on their spaceship and leave them behind. And he blows that porthole. And then Matthew McConaughey has to spin his spaceship to match the speed of the... This is way... I'm not doing a good job of explaining this. You know the scene that I'm talking about, though? He has to match the spin rotation.
My
in that organ
going up because it's such an intense scene.
The organ in that scene, I remember being on the edge of my seat and my hands were just gripping my armrest because the music was so intense and the scene was so intense. And then when he finally did it, I just remember breathing a sigh of relief and the music calmed down. But Christian, I want to hear your take on this soundtrack.
It's stunning. I go back to it again and again. I never, ever get sick of listening to this. I also pair this soundtrack with a lot of other things. Sometimes, well, actually often, I will pick certain soundtracks to listen to while I read that I think fit the book that I'm reading. This is one of them, and it is so transferable to other things because of the emotion that comes through in the song. Here's just some fun facts about this album. Christopher Nolan approached Hans Zimmer to produce the soundtrack for this next movie. And Hans Zimmer, of course, agreed. They're frequent collaborators. However, he did not tell Hans Zimmer anything about scope or scale or genre for this movie. And he just gave him a page or two of script that he had written for the film. And when Hans Zimmer read this, it was dialogue between a father and a son. And Christopher Nolan said, go for it. Give me whatever you've got. And he came back and Hans Zimmer wrote this moving piece of music that became the theme of the film about what it feels like to be a father and to have a son and that relationship. And it was only later that Christopher Nolan told him, well, it's actually the relationship between a father and his daughter. And it's actually a large-scale science fiction film. And so there was a little bit of trickery there, but it brought out this great work from Hans. And then I think what is also fascinating is that Hans Zimmer was thinking, what could we do? What instrument? We've done orchestra. We've done all of these other things for these big-scale movies. And those are all safe options. And as Josh alluded to, they went with organ. They got a magnificent organ player. And there's something in that I find so powerful that they performed this entire soundtrack and recorded it in a chapel, which in my mind, the chapel and the church and the organ kind of represents mankind's attempt to reach heaven, to reach God, to connect upward, and how appropriate to have that as the instrument in a movie where they're trying to go further into space and into heaven. So ultimately a powerful soundtrack, really rewarding to listen to and easy to go back to again and again.
And Hans Zimmer said this was the piece that he was most proud of that he's ever written, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is magnificent. And the music for this movie makes this movie, I think, probably top 3 my all-time favorite movies. The plot already had me invested and interested, but the music just took me to another level.
Well, and that's the question, isn't it? I mean, it's the soundtrack that made the movie, right? And most of Hans Zimmer's soundtracks do a great job at supporting the film, but for some reason, this soundtrack in particular pushed this movie up and over the edge and also made it one of my favorites.
It's amazing. We could talk about Interstellar for hours. We should probably just do another episode on that movie.
We probably should. I was going to say, for anyone that hasn't listened to this soundtrack or hasn't seen the movie, I would just say 2 songs to go listen to are The Cornfield Chase and Mountains. I think they're great introductions into this soundtrack.
Excellent. Thank you, Christian. Thanks, Connor. I'm glad we're all on the same page there. Now, we're going to turn the microscope on our own lives a little bit. What soundtrack would you use for your own life's soundtrack? I'm going to go ahead and start us out on this one. I chose Harry Potter 3 by John Williams. Christian, I think you already had mentioned the soundtrack or a song from the soundtrack. So we've already talked about it. I don't need to say too much other than Harry Potter 3 also has a theme of time, and a lot of the music is reflective and just makes you think deeply about your past. There's a lot of scenes from that movie that really resonate with me. I think I've mentioned the Lupin and Harry scenes have always been my favorite parts of that movie. The way that Lupin mentors Harry when he doesn't really have anybody else. He's a friend to him. He shares stories about Harry's parents that he doesn't know. And the music for me just puts me in a contemplative mood. And I am a deep thinker. I think a lot about things in my own life. And I think that music most accurately depicts feelings that I have day to day in my own life.
Josh, I would watch that movie. Your life movie set to that music. Great choice.
Oh, thanks. It would be, I don't know if it would be as interesting as watching Harry fight Dementors, but yeah, I do think the music is fantastic. In my personal opinion, one of John Williams' best ever. Okay, Christian, you want to tell us about your song or soundtrack for your life?
Yes, and I don't want to steal Connor's thunder here, but I was inspired by his answer. The soundtrack is the Finding Nemo soundtrack by Thomas Newman. Thomas Newman has an extremely distinct sound. His is also very kind of ethereal, light sounding. I think he does the WALL-E soundtrack as well, and he's got a lot of these tones that are really pleasing when you listen to his music. So for me, the Finding Nemo soundtrack, it's light, it's happy, and I just felt like that was a good option for me. So I love his work.
Light and happy, those are good descriptor words for you, Christian. I think that fits well. I had honestly never heard of Thomas Newman as a composer, which I'm a little ashamed to admit because when I looked him up and saw how many influential or big name movies that he had worked on, I was surprised that I hadn't really recognized his name before. But
I think something about Thomas Newman is that he's certainly not pretentious or he doesn't seek a lot of praise for his work. He's not very public, but he is in a lot of films, and there's something about his music. It gets used over and over, and I realized he was this great composer when I began to connect the dots between these films that had music that I loved, and his name kept coming up over and over. So he's done James Bond films. He's done just a number of great films. I think The Shawshank Redemption is a very famous film. He did the music for that as well. So, yeah, he's got some talent.
And as you're talking about the movies that he's worked on before, I was just thinking about Finding Nemo, your answer to this question. And the music is perfect. It perfectly reflects like this little underwater world that we don't get to be a part of as human beings, but it is very magical, and I think it's a perfect match. So as you were talking about that, I'm like, yeah, I hadn't really thought about the music from Finding Nemo before, but it really is superb for what the movie is. Connor, tell us about your choice. Also Thomas Newman, but a different movie.
Yeah. Well, first off, I was actually really excited to see that Christian put Finding Nemo. That was another one that I was considering for the same question. And yeah, I think he did a great job of explaining kind of why that's a great soundtrack. And I chose A Man Called Otto. Let's see. Yeah, for essentially the same reasons. I just barely saw that movie last weekend, so it was kind of on my mind as well. But a lot of the music it's pretty light, and I feel like for a soundtrack play to a movie of my life, it has just a lot of just these short clips of music that I feel like you can just apply to a lot of different things. Like there's a song that I can imagine being played while I'm like shopping in a grocery store and like something comical happens or something, or like it's just a very kind of light and easygoing soundtrack. I thought of other soundtracks like Pirates of the Caribbean or Pride and Prejudice or How to Train Your Dragon, but I felt like the day-to-day parts of my life didn't really have many moments that soundtrack would really be able to be played to and fit. So I just thought that Thomas Newman writes music that I think kind of fits in everyday life.
I'm glad you said that, because those other movies, movie soundtracks that you said, those are all fantastical, very imaginative. A Man Called Otto is just about a man's everyday life and some of the hardest parts of his journey, but it's much more of a human experience sort of film than any of those other ones that you mentioned. So that's cool that Thomas Newman was able to create music that fits so well with those day-to-day activities and struggles.
You know, and Connor, your answer really reminds me that his music pairs the emotional experience of any character in the movie and delivers it straight to the audience, whoever's viewing it. He really builds that bridge between the movie and the viewer, and it's easy to connect with who you're watching because his music is for the common man, the everyday person. So I definitely agree with your answer.
And let this also be a plug for that movie. I actually haven't seen the Tom Hanks version yet. I saw the original, which is a Swedish film called En man som heter Ove. Exact same story, but Tom Hanks, I believe, saw the Swedish version and wanted to create an American version. And the Swedish version that I saw made me cry when I watched it. It's just a very sweet story. I know my sister has seen this Tom Hanks version, and she also cried in theaters. Connor, did that maybe get you to shed a couple tears?
My eyes got a little teary. Yeah, it's definitely an emotional movie that people should be prepared for.
But a happy ending. I mean, through all of his struggles, the whole story is about just friendship and connection, creating connection with the most unlikely people, but a really beautiful message. All right, awesome. Guys, now we're getting to this question, another Christian question, but I thought it was a great question. Best musical of all time. Connor, do you want to start us off on this one and tell us why you chose what you did?
Yeah, this was a really tough one. I really love musicals. I chose The Greatest Showman, and that's just because that's music that I actually listen to a lot. And so when I'm on road trips, I have a musicals playlist on Spotify that I just pull up when I'm going on road trips, and it has a bunch of different stuff. It has Greatest Showman, it has a lot of Mamma Mia too, and like some Disney musicals as well, Wicked. There's so many great musicals, but The Greatest Showman is just one that I can just listen to and also watch just over and over again without really getting too tired of it.
That's one of the few musicals where I feel like almost every single song on the soundtrack is one that I enjoy listening to. You know, there's some musicals where you're like, okay, those one or two songs are standout songs, but the rest I can kind of breeze by. Greatest Showman just is jam-packed full of great songs.
You know, that musical in particular is a very, very popular one in my family. I I think my wife saw it 7 times in the year that it came out. And obviously, we're talking more about the music than the movie. But it had a powerful effect. I mean, her grandpa, who's this studious scholar type, he went and saw it in theaters, walked out of the theater, bought new tickets for everyone that was with him, and went right back in to see it again. So it certainly is a very, very popular and a great album full of good music.
First time I saw that movie, I showed up 20 minutes late and the theater was jam-packed, absolutely crowded, and our seats were in the middle of the theater, and I had to step over a lot of people to get there. So not the fondest memories in the beginning of the film, but I was totally engrossed by the end. Great movie.
Yeah, I bought my tickets pretty late for that one, and I went with my sister, and so the only tickets left were right in the front. So the first time I watched it, it was from, like, I think the second row, and we were just staring straight up at the screen.
This is the greatest show. Yeah. All right, Christian, tell us about your answer.
We could throw so many musicals at this question, but I just chose Les Miserables. Beautiful story, beautiful music, powerful message. I don't even know what else I would say about it, but I absolutely love this musical. I put another musical next to it too. I think The Music Man has some great music. It's nostalgic for me. It is older, and so I wrote, I wish more people listened to this musical or saw it. But I don't know. There's so many. I agree with Connor's answer. Your answer to Come Josh is a great one. We've also got Les Miserables, or The Phantom of the Opera was one that came to mind. Musicals are really good. I don't know that there's any that are too bad. There's probably good, but
I would say the Les Mis song that gets me the most is Bring Him Home. Obviously, that's one of the standout songs. And then also, what's the Dream song that...
I Dreamed the Dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those two songs for me are definitely the best of that movie.
Both powerful.
So moving. I'm actually not a musical guy, which might... I don't know if you guys knew that. I really don't love musicals that much. This question was a little bit difficult for me to answer. I would prefer to go to a production or play where there was a lot more dialogue, because I want more content. And sometimes in musicals, maybe a song can carry a message really powerfully, but there's just not as much dialogue. So this one was a difficult one for me. But I had watched Sound of Music recently, and that's my choice, because it was just so wholesome. It was so wholesome. And I had forgotten that was a movie that I watched a lot growing up. And just Julie Andrews' character in that movie, Maria, someone who's really quirky and weird and doesn't really fit in a lot of other places, but it was almost like she was meant for this family, meant for those children, and all of her quirky attributes, everything that all of her gifts were meant to bless the lives of this little family. I also think the contrast between her and Captain Von Trapp is really funny. And the music is just is easy to listen to. The only song that I wouldn't listen to regularly from that movie is the song that they play during the puppet show. I don't even remember how it goes. I just remember not liking it.
The Lonely Goatherd.
Oh, yeah. Far on the hill there's a lonely goat. Yodelay, yodelay, yodelay. Yeah, terrible. That was that's a Roger and Hammerstein, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I was going to say, would you say that the Lonely Goatherd would fit the anxiety question answered previously?
Yes, it does. It brings anxiety. I will say my one favorite song is Christopher Plummer's Edelweiss, of course. That's one. I play guitar a little bit. Super simple song, but it just mirrors his transformation through the movie, how he's very strict, but eventually Maria gets him to see the joys of music and the way that it brings people together. In that moment when he plays Edelweiss for his children for the first time, and they see this man that they thought was so austere, suddenly have this really human side where he brings out this musical talent that he had kept hidden for so long. It was really sweet.
Josh, I think that's a great point. And this musical and a lot of songs throughout the podcast today, we've talked about the effect they have on our emotions. And in this musical in particular, there's two moments where I feel extremely moved and often find myself crying or almost crying.
I am 16 going on 17. Is that
that would not be one of those moments. The children are singing The Sound of Music, The Hills Are Alive, and they're singing it to their almost new stepmom, and they're just depressed. They're dejected, they're sad. The tempo of the song has slowed down, and all of a sudden, they can hear a voice far kind of in the distance join in, and it gets louder and louder, and they turn around, and there is Maria coming up the walk. And it might have been a different song at that point that they were singing, but beautiful, chilling moment. You feel thrilled that she's returned. The second one is not when one person joins in singing a group, but it's the opposite. You have Christopher Plummer's character singing Edelweiss, and he gets choked up on the stage. He's going to miss his home country, and they're about to flee, and he breaks, and he can't finish the song. And the entire congregation that is there watching the performance that night joins in to kind of buoy him up and carry him through. And I can't help but get choked up each time.
Ooh, give me chills just talking about it.
Yeah.
That is a great scene.
Good music.
All right, guys, we're moving on to our next question. Song that I listen to when I know there's a challenging day ahead of me. I'm going to go ahead and start us out on this one. I chose the song Honor Him, which is by Hans Zimmer, of course, from the movie Gladiator. It is cheesy beyond compare that I chose this song. It's just like an epic 2-minute song. I believe Gladiator had just been killed at the end of the movie, and now he's finally returning to his family in Elysium, and I think his body is like being carried out or something, but the song is just a tribute to him for all the things that he's suffered and accomplished on this path of revenge, which is not a very wholesome message, a revenge story that succeeds, but sometimes when I'm facing a really difficult day, I just want that dramatic music that makes me feel like I'm a hero, like I'm sacrificing for something. And it gives me the courage to put up my shoulders a little bit higher, stick out my chest, and face the day in a very dramatic way, but effective.
That one's a powerful song. And I think, Josh, this question's an interesting one because we're looking at a song that helps us to approach the challenges that await. And so I love this answer because I feel like it's very telling. This is a song that empowers you to feel like you're suiting up. You're putting on armor to face what's ahead. So it's interesting to see, the rest of our answers. What is our approach in these scenarios? Is it suiting up? Is it trying to chill and relax? There's a lot of approaches, but what a great song to get you the energy you need to conquer what's ahead. I love it.
It also makes me smile a little bit because it is a little over the top, so it brings a little humor. It definitely is, it does feel like I'm putting on armor. I'm getting some strength for the day, but it's also fun. I have other songs like this the theme song from Magnificent Seven, the old Western movie. Totally over the top. I think that's a Leonard Bernstein song, but so funny. The Great Escape, another one that I listen to just to motivate me, but also just to make me smile because there's awesome cinematic pieces. All right, Connor, do you want to tell us about your song?
Yeah, I chose Intro by the XX, and my kind of approach to this one it is a kind of a calming song for me, but it also it just steals my nerves. It's like, I know I have this tough day ahead of me, but it just kind of puts my mind in a good place.
What a great expression. Steals my nerves. That's excellent.
Connor, this one, I don't know if either of you remember my cousin Annie, but when she studies, she finds a 10-hour loop of this song on YouTube, and she'll just listen to it. It's out there, I guess, but it's a good one. Again, I think this one doesn't have any words in it, right? It's just good sounding music. You're right. It's both relaxing and it's motivating. There's a little bit of an undertone to it that drives you forward, drives the song forward. So, what a great song to pick for this.
Have you guys listened to any of their other music?
Not really, no.
Nope. Me neither. Just that one song. That's so good. All right, Christian, looks like you have 2 answers here. What are they?
Patience by Tame Impala. Very happy song. I like the title. I think it is instructive for me because I can tend to get agitated or worried. And this song's a great one to help me take in what's around me, enjoy the moment, rather than worry so much about what's ahead. So that is why I chose that song. The Life in Color by One Republic was the other answer. This one was a song that I actually listened to after a hard day. It was post-mission. I was borrowing my sibling's iPod at the time, and I had just had a really tough day at work. And I turned on the iPod, and this song came on. And I don't know why I had never heard it before, but it instantly calmed me down, steeled my nerves, as Connor said. I opened the sunroof, rolled down the windows, and enjoyed the summer. And it just reminded me that those hard and challenging times, this is life in color. This is what makes life colorful and enjoyable and rewarding, were these harder moments. And so I turn back to that song multiple times to feel that same message and reminder.
So, Christian, would you say when you're facing challenging times, you're looking for songs that have lyrics that are helping you understand bigger picture, taking you away from just the day-to-day challenges? I mean, like, let's take a different perspective on these hard things that's happening.
I think so. Those kinds of songs always are the quickest at changing my mentality, which I think is the first thing that needs to change if I'm going to make it through a day. I find that when I'm having those hard days, that's usually where the stop is happening, is up here. So I'm looking for something to get me out of that, whether it purely makes me feel good and it doesn't even have any lyrics, or whether I need a little more of an oomph to my song, and it can speak to me directly and say, hey, you got this. There's more to life than this moment, and you're going to make it.
That's really interesting. I feel like in some of my lowest points, sometimes I just want music that keeps me there for a little bit, but I realize that sometimes that's unhealthy. And so I'm really grateful for the variety of music that we have, that there are some songs that help you feel deep emotions, be present with them. But there are also songs that are truly inspiring to help you to see life in a different way. And that perspective that you mentioned, Life in Color, I didn't even recognize that that's really what the message of the song was. But now that you say it, it is really cool. Life in Color, that this range of human experience, emotion, is part of the amazing part of this journey. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome.
Let me see, before we move on to this next question, Josh, I just had a line come to mind from the song, and I want to see if I can pull it up.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Yeah, I think in his chorus, he just says, "This is life in color. Today feels like no other. And the darkest grays, the sun bursts, clouds break." So again, it's just that message of even if it seems dark, the sun will come through. It'll break through the clouds and give you something new to cling on to and put hope to.
This is going to tie into one of our later questions, but that is a really great thought. And you have to feel like when you listen to those songs and you listen to those lyrics, those artists have to have been going through something themselves. They had to have gone to some deep, dark place or had challenging days themselves to be able to write lyrics that were able to capture that sort of perspective. And I'm just so grateful for artists like that who feel inspired to write music that's really hopeful and encouraging.
I feel the same way. Just grateful that they are willing to be vulnerable enough and share those feelings and put them into songs so that we can share in that same feeling.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Guys, we're going to, instead of talking about one song specifically, we're just going to talk about an artist in general that we feel like represents us the most. Christian and Connor, you guys had the same answer. I almost chose this band, but I chose somebody else for a different reason. But Christian and Connor, do you guys want to tackle this one together? Talk about why you chose the band, the artist that you did?
All right. Yeah, we chose Coldplay. And really, it seems like there's a Coldplay song for any emotion that I'm feeling. And I love the sound of them. I love the sound of Chris Martin's voice. They have great musicians that are part of their band that I feel like they just find a way to put any emotion that I'm feeling into a song. And so it's just always something that I can listen to and kind of feel, I don't know what the right word is. It kind of validates my feelings and also helps me understand that it's not something that only I have felt. So, and that's for the highs and the lows. There's songs that I can listen to when I'm really down that either help me just kind of sit there and feel those feelings, kind of like you were talking about earlier, Josh, or it helps me kind of come out of those lower moments, and it helps me celebrate the good moments. There's really just a song for everything for me.
I like that you talk about a song for every emotion, and the reason why I chose them was for a similar reason. They were the earliest love of music for me, and they remain that way. And they were the first concert I went to. And so to have a band that has been producing good music from my entire life, really, it makes sense that they would have a song for every single emotion, experience, and feeling. So I chose them for the same reason.
Well, and I was going to say as well, I'm just going to look up the album names here because I don't want to get any of them wrong. But I was going to say every album is different, which is something that I love. Like we talk about other bands like Weezer, their music sounds pretty much the same through the albums. It's great music, but Coldplay, I think I remember listening to an interview where Chris Martin said that he wasn't really interested in appealing to those fans that wanted their music to stay the same the entire time that they were creating music together, because they had those early fans from the Parachutes album that were like, this is what Coldplay is. And then you have other fans that came along later for their different albums, like A Head Full of Dreams, that created a different set of fans. Every album is completely different, but my goodness, it shows or reflects transitions through life. And some of the albums like Parachutes, you can tell they're going through some difficult things, expressing some difficult emotions. Ghost Stories, which we're going to talk about later, expressing some very difficult feelings and emotions. Head Full of Dreams, Music of the Spheres are very cheerful albums. Everyday Life, completely different. Still an album that I'm working on understanding and learning to love, but I'm definitely getting there. Everyday Life just feels like this, like Chris Martin and Coldplay just took their arms and tried to gather in everybody from around the world and include every culture into one album, which I thought was really beautiful. So just their range and style of music and the way that it changes, I think it is incredible. It makes them a band that you can listen to at any time, any phase of your life.
And I think Head Full of Dreams was their seventh studio album, official album, and Chris Martin was reported to say, and this is it. I think he was like, I think we're looking at this like the seven Harry Potter books, and he was like, we're capping this at this point, and I'm just so pleased to see that there's still music just trickling out of their genius and creativity and being given to us even after that album. So.
Well, I remember you mentioning that they were probably done performing music and being really sad because it had always been a dream of mine to go to a Coldplay concert. So I'm glad they continued creating music. I was able to go to the most recent, what was the most recent album called? Music of the Spheres. I was able to go to that concert, and it was an amazing experience. Their performance is so, Christian, you've talked about this before, but their performance, like their music, involves everybody. They don't want to leave anybody out, and it was such a fun experience to be there, to be able to sing those songs that I've come to love out loud.
And they extended their tour, which I'm excited about because I missed getting tickets the first time around. But when they added some new dates, I got some tickets. So
you're going to Seattle, Connor?
Decided to go to San Diego instead. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
A little bit nicer weather.
Yes.
Yeah, I am not a frequent concert goer. I still can't get over how much tickets cost to go to concerts. I really don't like being around crowds of people and loud noises, but if you can find a band that you love so much, lyrics to most of their songs, I definitely would recommend going because it was a unique feeling to be able to sing songs like Viva La Vida with an entire stadium, tens of thousands of people, all in a unified voice singing that anthem. And I just remember seeing the band down on the stage, and for that song they have like a giant Liberty Bell looking thing that they're playing while the song is going that's just ringing out, and it was a really cool experience. All right, the artist that I chose, I feel like I've committed a bit of a betrayal by not choosing Coldplay. Let's understand that I love Coldplay so much, but John Mayer for me is the artist that I chose. For a long time, there were several years I was having kind of a difficult time. John Mayer was the go-to artist for me. I listened to his albums over and over again. Continuum, in particular, was the album that I loved the most, and Battle Studios. Both of those albums had songs about relationship challenges, about feelings of inadequacy or lowness. They had the song Stop This Train that I love so much. And it was that type of music that I felt like John Mayer understood feelings that I was feeling in my life and was able to communicate them through the music that he wrote, also the lyrics that he wrote. It's just music that's easy to listen to. It fits for most any setting. And lyrically, I think, has a lot of genius. So those continue to be go-to albums for me during difficult moments in my life. I'm just very grateful for that music. I know he has a bit of an ego and a lot of people don't like his personality or things that he's done, but for his music, I am grateful.
I think John Mayer's strength and what carries his songs so much is his lyrical ability, his songwriting ability. Just the messages that come through in his music are very easy to connect to. And so it makes perfect sense that you would choose him, Josh, as an artist that does a great job representing you and capturing your experiences. I think that's his strength, is his ability to write songs that capture people's experiences. So it's a great option, great answer.
It is a gift that he was given for sure. I always refer to artists like him when I'm like, I hope that in my life I can connect with people in that way, or I can do something that helps people in that way, with like creative things that I've been given or that you guys have been given. There's always those artists just inspire me to want to connect with other people and be vulnerable about my own experiences and helping other people. So I'm grateful for them and their role model. Okay, we're moving on. Last few questions. What is a song that gives me hope that everything is going to be okay? I'm going to go ahead and take this one first. The song that I chose is called Everything Has Its Place by Young Mister. This was just a song that was recommended to me through Spotify. It's kind of a folk song. As you can tell from the title, Everything Has Its Place. It's a good perspective shift song, like what Christian was talking about. The good and the bad, everything has its place. And it's a good reminder for me when I need to be reminded that whatever hard thing I'm experiencing in my life is not the end. And eventually it will go away. It has its purpose in molding me and changing me into someone, hopefully a better version of myself. But everything has its place, including good moments and happy experiences as well. So that's why I love that song. It's very calming for me.
You know, there's a few songs like this one that I listen to. I just love that they're very chill, and the lyric in this song, Josh, that I loved. I hadn't heard it until you shared it, but he says, "Just like the ocean pairs well with the sun, I go with you." And I just thought, man, what a great line. So I hadn't heard this. I'm grateful you shared it. Great song.
I'm glad you pointed that out. Two completely different elements or things, but they are necessary for one another. They complement each other. Yeah. Christian, would you like to share your song?
Absolutely. This is another Tame Impala song. I absolutely.
This is the third Tame Impala song, I think.
I think you are correct. And I could have put a lot more. I tried to diversify my answers, but my brother introduced me to Tame Impala. And one of the things that he says about this band is that their songs never get old. You can listen to them over and over and find something new that you love. And it's this constant pleasure of rediscovery. You're never feeling like, oh, okay, I've heard this one enough. These songs kind of sneak up on you. This was one of those. I was driving. It was an hour plus long drive. Again, we're in the car. It's the same setting we've talked about. And again, a little bit of a hard day, feeling down on myself. This song came on and instantly captured my attention, my emotion. The song begins with these lines: "I close my front door and turn on the light. I let out a breath and hold in a sigh." And it hit me, and I thought, that's exactly how I feel. You know, coming home after a long day and feeling like you're just breathing out. Maybe you're exhausted, you're emotionally spent. But the message of this song is encapsulated in this line: "But strictly speaking, I'm still on track. Strictly speaking, I'm holding on. It's more than a minor setback. Strictly speaking, I'm still on track. My dreams are still in sight. I've got my whole life. I lost a wheel a while back, but strictly speaking, I'm still on track." And so when I listen to this, I have hope that I will be okay. My life will be okay, because no matter what's happening, strictly speaking, I'm still heading in the right direction. I'm still on track. So this is the song I turn to when I need to feel hope that everything will be okay.
A great reminder to all of us that we're probably doing better than we think. And most of the time we're doing the best that we can. I would say 99% of the time we're doing the best we can. And
a good reminder too for me in this song is that it really comes down to the direction you're heading. I think we make mistakes a lot that pull us or veer us off of the path we wish to tread. But as long as we're trying to correct our course and we're heading in the right direction, that's, I think, what matters.
Yeah, totally agree. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Connor?
I chose "The Best Is Yet to Come" by Shepherd. And I mean, I think the title kind of says it just by itself, but it's just a song about kind of some low moments that this person has had. But he recognizes that it's not always going to be like that. The best is yet to come. One of the lines says it's darkest right before the sun, which is kind of a cliche thing, but it just kind of gives me hope for better days. And it's an upbeat song, which also helps my mood in those times. So yeah, it's a great song.
I'm really glad you mentioned that specific line in the song. I love dark and light analogies. I just think they're amazing. Create such great images in my mind. I'm going to talk about the dark and light later with another question, but yeah, thanks for sharing that line. That's a good one.
I
I
love
don't.
this song too, Connor. Great answer. Calm, great voices, great peace, great vibes, positive message. So it was a great song.
Yeah, it's amazing how often we're wanting to be reassured that there are good things coming. How often I find myself in a situation I'm like, please just tell me everything is going to be all right, that things are going to work out fine. And again, just very grateful for songs like that, Connor, that point us towards better days. All right, now we are getting into the best of all time. We are talking the best album of all time. Connor and I have the same answer. Christian, we're going to let you go first, and then we're going to talk about that answer that Connor and I gave.
So I think I don't know if either of you struggle with this, but this qualifying term "best," man, the pressure behind that is unreal. Is my answer the best album of all time? Maybe not, but I find this album as just a really attractive album, one I can listen to the whole thing over and over and really enjoy. Lord Huron is a lesser-known folk-type band that I absolutely love. Every one of their songs, even the quirkier few, are really compelling to me. They have beautiful work, a beautiful sound. It really takes me to Oregon. Again, I think, for anyone that doesn't know, I live here now, and I left Oregon, and I miss Oregon. And so certain songs that take me back, I really gravitate towards. And the sound of Lord Huron does that for me. The Strange Trails album has really only good songs on it. It's another one that I bought on record and will play on a record player. I don't know what else to say. It's just a good album.
No one creates a more mystical, true folk sound than Lord Huron. I have never heard another band that comes close to creating the sounds that they create. And it does feel like the forests of Oregon where you and I grew up, Christian. It's crazy. The song that I love of theirs from a different album, When the Night is Over, it just transports me like no other song. It literally feels, if I close my eyes, I just imagine myself in a completely different place. And music that can do that is just incredible.
I remember there was The Night We Met, I think is my favorite song by Lord Huron. And there was a time where there was just this tune in my head that I knew that I had heard somewhere before that I really loved, but I could not for the life of me remember what song it was. And so I was thinking about it for like a month. And then one day it just clicked and I was like, oh my goodness, that's The Night We Met. And so ever since that, I've been listening to that song actually a lot. But yeah, they have a really cool and unique sound.
That song in particular, Connor, how it is able to blend like romance, but that song is also about reminiscing and kind of the haze, trying to remember initial moments when you meet someone that you're interested in or attracted to. The song creates that feeling so perfectly. It's just amazing. So, Christian, great choice for best album of all time. I think it's definitely warranted. All right, Connor, I'm going to let you have the final say on this album, so I'll go ahead and share my thoughts on it. Connor and I both chose Ghost Stories by Coldplay. This is an album of Coldplay's that a lot of people don't like, just because it's totally different from any of their other albums. It's a lot slower. But I believe I'm accurate in this history that I'm about to recite, but I think Chris Martin was going through a divorce at the time that he wrote this album, and I feel like most of the songs on the album are just about relationships and the deep emotion and connection that come from relationships, and then the heartbreak that comes from maybe when things don't work out the way that you thought they were going to work out. So there's a lot of deep feelings of sadness, wishing you were closer to someone that you've separated from. There's also a lot of songs about looking forward in my mind, and how do you move past a relationship with someone who you've been so involved with for so long. To me, it is the most raw and wonderful album that expresses human emotion and experience. I've never listened to another album that does it as well as Coldplay does.
Well said.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I mean, there's not a single song on that album that I don't love, but it just feels extremely vulnerable. And yeah, I mean, he was writing this during his divorce, and that, I think for most people, is a very trying and private time. It's not something you typically, I would think that people would typically share a lot about, but he kind of gave us an insight into just his innermost feelings with that album. And it applies to so many different things. Like it's such a range of emotions that it's just an album that I can listen to at any point, and it just brings me this, I don't know, this overwhelming feeling of just, I don't even know what the word is. Like, it's even hard for me to put it into words. It's more of just this feeling that's just an incredible album. And
it's, yeah. I was trying to think of a word too, and I couldn't. I was like, relatability. Maybe that's not strong enough. Empathy. Maybe that's a little bit closer. It's like just a shared experience. Like what you said, how he's able to bring other people into his experience and share it. No other album puts me in as contemplative as a mood as this album does. That's why it's like a nighttime drive album for me. When I need a deep think, this is the one that I turn to, because I know that he is expressing feelings that are things that I can deeply relate to. Christian, what's your take on this album?
Yeah, if I could just join in, I too am trying to think, okay, well, what is the word? What does this do for us? But I think that there is this part of our emotions that are the untouchable, unexplainable part that's really deep down. And it's at its core of who we are, and very rarely do we put into words those feelings or what we're thinking or feeling. By some form of genius and talent, Chris Martin, is able to take us there, go there, pull out and draw out those feelings and emotions and encapsulate them in this album. And so I am in agreement with the both of you. I'm just very grateful that he produced this album, even if it's less popular, even if it's not chart topping. It needed to be made, so I'm glad he produced it.
I think other people who are listening to us talk about this album and some of the songs that we talked about, maybe they're like, what the heck is wrong with these guys? We're so emotionally connected to the music that we listen to, and I think we're all kind of emotional guys, or at least that is important to us. And I sense a common theme that we love songs that help us to feel things deeply. And that's why not all of our songs that we've chosen for these questions are like party anthems. I mean, we definitely enjoy that type of music, but when we're coming down to defining the best album of all time, we want to choose something that expresses those emotions clearly and so deeply, and Ghost Stories does that for us. That's why, even though it's a somber, kind of a sad album, it is hopeful in a way, because it's like, well, I'm not alone. Somebody else has gone through things that I'm going through, and that, honestly, when I listen to the album, it's a little bit sad, but also it's a lot of just gratitude and happiness. It's kind of a weird thing. How do you feel happy when you're suffering? I think it's through connection with other people who are going through similar things, and that album, again, does that for us.
Josh, what you're saying is you would not put Kesha in this category for sleeping in
I wouldn't.
curves.
I wouldn't put Kesha or her curs in. Yeah. No,
Yes, of
not at
course
all.
he does. None of that. Okay.
No. I did want to mention one other album too. I couldn't choose, like you said, Christian. It's hard to pick one, but Golden Hour by Casey Musgraves is my other favorite album of all time for different reasons. She also does a good job of expressing human experience. That album, the sound is just, everything is so complete and so easy to listen to. And I already mentioned the song Slow Burn from that album, but that is an album that I listen to on repeat all the time. I probably listen to it once or twice a week. So that's another good one for me.
Well, and to be honest, Josh, I think the answers that have been born out of this question are albums that you can listen through to the end and not have the urge to skip to the next song. There are albums, in fact, I would say most albums only have maybe a handful, 5 songs that the listener truly enjoys, and maybe the others aren't the best. But these albums that we brought up today, including Golden Hour by Casey Musgraves, are albums where you can listen from song 1 to the end, and that urge to skip doesn't really come up.
No, you nailed that right on the head. That whole album of Casey Musgraves I can listen to. There's one song, Velvet Elvis, that makes me cringe a little bit, but
Just a little.
besides, that's the only one. That's the only one. Every other song I think is sublime. So, and that album, I think she wrote an album right after the Golden Hour album that was also about her divorce, and she has songs like Good Wife on there that are really heart-wrenching and beautiful. So she also does a great job of expressing those emotions. We are getting to our final question here. The best song of all time. Connor, I want you to lead us out on this one.
I chose Magic by Coldplay, which is on the Ghost Stories album. And there's a lot that went into this. Number one, I just love the song, the lyrics, the emotion behind it, the instruments, the melody that goes into it, the bass. It's just a very just powerful song for me. And I mean, the lyrics are incredible. They're very hopeful for me. And I think this was a song about his divorce, and it goes through talking about the magic of being with someone, and towards the end it doesn't really work out, but he leaves it on an incredibly hopeful note, and a few of the lines just says, and if you were to ask me after all that we've been through, still believe in magic? Yes, I do. And that honestly is just some of the most hopeful lyrics I can think of in any song that I've heard, where you go through this roller coaster of a relationship, of experiences, and the magic doesn't really work out the way that you hoped that it would. But in the end, he said he still believes in magic. And I think that is incredibly beautiful, incredibly moving. And it's a song that I can listen to at any point and just feel better after and more hopeful. And another thing that goes into this being a favorite song of mine is, Josh, freshman year, you introduced Music Appreciation Nights to us all. And for all the listeners, that was just a time when we would all just come together. We had some decent speakers, and we would turn the lights down a little bit lower, and we'd just all kind of sit there quietly, and we would have songs that we would just go around and share, and we would bring up a song, kind of explain why it was a song that we cared about, why we liked it, and then we would just sit there and listen to it. And that was honestly one of my favorite experiences of college. We do it pretty often. And we would always end with Magic, per Josh's request. And it brings back a lot of good memories.
I have nothing to add, Connor. You said everything that I love about that song. That was a beautiful explanation.
I love that one.
Whatever it is, a transfixing song. All right, Christian, I'm going to go ahead and answer next. I'll leave the best song of all time conclusion to you, but I'm also going to share a song from the Ghost Stories album. Mine's Midnight, which might also come as a surprise. Not a party song, not a dance song at all. In my mind, the name of the song is Midnight. Midnight is the darkest time, the most pitch black, and it's just kind of an interesting sound to the song. It's kind of the same numb beat throughout the entire song. It's very contemplative. It puts you in a kind of a sullen thinking mood, and then eventually it comes to these lyrics where he says, "Leave a light on in the darkness before the dawn. Leave a light on," which is an emotion that he expressed that I really relate to. Those moments when you're at your lowest point and you're like, I have no idea how I'm going to work through this thing, how I'm going to come out on the other side at all. It feels so hopeless. It feels helpless. And his plea is, just please, somebody leave a light on so that I can feel hope that things are going to get better in the future. That's at least my interpretation. It's a sentiment that I find relatability to. When I am in those hardest moments, I'm looking for lights. I'm looking for things that bring me hope and inspire me. And whether it's people that come into my life or songs, those lights that have appeared for me are the things that I am most grateful for in my life that have kept me going. And for that reason, the song, I think, is the best song ever written. The rawest, most beautiful song ever written.
I have a very specific memory associated with this, Josh. I don't know if you remember, and I can't even remember where we were at, but I think we were driving home from either when we were out looking at the stars with your dad in his telescope one time, or if we were just out somewhere really late, but we were driving down some back roads, and you were driving. There are a few of us that were still just in the backseat in the car, and this song was playing. And that was like one of the most relaxing moments I think I've ever had in my life, where we're just driving down these empty country roads and just listening to that song. And it was just such a feeling of peace.
I do remember that everybody in the back was asleep. I think you and I were sitting together in the front, and both of us were both awake, but we didn't say a single thing to each other while that song played. And it was nighttime. I remember that very clearly. It was an extremely peaceful, lovely moment to share with you. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible. Great memory.
I think that this album and these songs that both of you have mentioned pair so well with the night. And it's crazy how there are some of those songs that lend themselves better for a different time of the day than another. Midnight is certainly one of those. Josh, I love your word, a numb beat. I thought that was a great descriptor for this song.
Thanks. All right, Christian, take us away on our conclusion. Best song of all time.
I hate to take us out of Coldplay, but this is a dream song of mine to play and perform one day. I'm still working on it. Before I just launch into thoughts, did either of you get a chance to listen to this song, and what did you think? It's an all piano song for those listening to the podcast.
I'm going to be honest, I did not have a chance to listen to this one, Christian, and it breaks my heart. I was trying desperately to listen to all of these songs, and I had a late night. I think I fell asleep around 2 a.m., and I didn't get to it. And I apologize. I'm going to listen to it, I promise.
I regret to say that I also did not get to this one.
Oh my gosh, we both totally flopped on this one.
It gives the chance another time, but this is a fantastic song. The original composer of this song is Joe Hisaishi, and I probably butchered his name, but he produces most of the music for all of Hayao Miyazaki's films, who has been credited with being the Japanese Walt Disney. He produces Studio Ghibli films, And just as Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer frequently collaborate, Joe Hisaishi and Hayao Miyazaki are also frequent collaborators. And this song in particular is extremely moving in the movie Howl's Moving Castle. It's a theme that comes up and is reused throughout the movie. And Kyle Landry is the performer and creator of the arrangement that I have brought to this podcast today, the Howl's Moving Castle theme. And he is known to perform great sweeping songs on the piano, and he's got a lot of music. This one in particular, and what he did with this song is so grand and so magnificent that I find myself turning to it over and over and over. There are some songs that you feel like you can feast on. There's so much there to listen to and to dissect, and this is one of those for me. And the words, I've already said them, but I think the two adjectives for me would be grand and swooping for this song. This is one best enjoyed through headphones in your ears, blocking out all other noise. And again, my dream one day is to play this song, but I have come to realize that this is one of the greatest songs of all time for me, specifically Kyle Landry's performance. And I'm happy for the opportunity today to bring it to the attention of our listeners. I think we all need this in our lives.
Have you started learning this on the piano, Christian?
I have. I've been chipping away at it. It's hard without a full piano, but I've been working at it, and it will probably take me a while based on the amount of time I can devote to practice, but I have absolutely began working on this song.
When you finish it, you let us know. I will be the first to come over and listen to it.
Great.
I'm genuinely excited to listen to this song. I was just looking up the movie right here. It's kind of an old movie. I've never heard of this. Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah, I actually love this movie and a lot of Studio Ghibli's films. My Neighbor Totoro is one of the more popular or well-known films in this studio's work. It is anime, and so for many people, that may be a turnoff or something where they think, well, I don't know that I'm going to enjoy that. But I referenced my mother's advice earlier in this podcast, and I'll say it again. I think there's something to love about any piece of art and any piece of music. The same is true for this film. So, if anything, the beautiful painted landscapes in this animated film paired with this song, also known as Merry-Go-Round of Life, that alone is enough for me to really enjoy it.
Excellent. I'm really excited to listen to it. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Connor and Christian, both for all of your answers, the thought that you put into these songs and answers to these questions. It has been a pure delight to be able to talk about these with you guys. I really appreciate you both taking the time to come on.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Connor, for having me. It's been so fun to catch up in this way, and we had these kinds of conversations as roommates, but it's so nice to have the opportunity to go at it again and talking about these songs that we love. So thanks for having me.
It is wonderful how it is essentially what we did for years as roommates, these sorts of conversations, that we're just recording them now. And these conversations are things that I look back on with the most fondness from college years. I'm just very grateful for both of you and insights that you have, and that we are compatible in that way, and the things that we're interested in talking about.